I have a lot of club kids who are huge fans of my podcast, and they follow my work around the world doing my DJ sets with Skrillex, David Guetta. I'm not trying to name drop, but I absolutely am. Calvin Harris, until we had a little bit of a falling out recently over a girl, but um, there's been a little bit of a drop off. I've been hearing the chatter in my fades, and I really took it upon myself to ace that fade today. And I think that was about a 9.3. What do you think? Think I hit that okay?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah, appreciate you. That's a good answer and the correct answer. Anyway, welcome to the Scary Alvarez podcast. I'm Scary Alvarez, Wine Island enjoyer, Sherry Wine destroyer, Jake Ferguson's grandpa, and Cindy's plus one when she'll have me. And I'm coming up on about year and a half mark of this podcast. So I've been around almost as long as Brent Bielema stays in a Golden Corral buffet line. So I would like to welcome. Yeah, I should leave a little time for laughter. It might happen once or twice in the course of 30 minutes, but I appreciate that. But we're very blessed to have message board geniuses here today. This is I'll let you kind of MBG. I'll let you explain what you do, but I know most of my listeners and viewers, in this case, just a couple of handsome guys here that everyone's drooling over. Explain what you do and the kind of stuff you have going on the internet there.
Well, I don't do a whole lot, but I do. I have a Twitter account um, where I post various message board takes, either really insane, funny, or interesting message board takes from all across to college football, college basketball. Have a podcast as well where we kind of talk about that. We have some good guests on there as well. So we just like to be a little more lighthearted in the way we discuss college football and college basketball and fandom in general. So I get a kick out of it, but that's about all I do.
Well, you're very modest, and so if you take you and take me and divide by two, we have average levels of modesty, so that works out perfectly. Um, Yeah, I'm a fan of your work, and look, it's one thing to say, there's some crazy fans out there on message boards, and here are a couple cut pastes, but the way you do it, I'm not sure if it's just you're always digging, but you really, I think, capture the spirit of just how insane various fan bases are, and just how irrational various fan bases are across the college sports universe. What got you into this?
Oh, I would just see various message boards, including my own. I'm a Utah State fan, and believe it or not, there are such things as Utah State fans, and they're as silly and ridiculous as any other fan base. But I would see just what I thought was ridiculous stuff on there, and sometimes you'd go visit opponents' message boards or whatever, and I would see those on there. So I just kind of thought, well, I wonder if other people think this is hilarious as I do. And so I kind of just started venturing around, and I would find crazy stuff and started tweeting it out, and uh, you know people think it's funny as funny as I do, and so people kind of started following along. So that was just kind of the origin of it all. And then I got a lot of followers. I mean, at one point Scott Van Pelt followed the account, and I had tweeted out a photo that he had followed the account, and then I started getting a whole bunch of followers since then. So that's kind of what really got me going with a follow from Scott Van Pelt. But so, anyways,
Yeah,
people like
yeah.
the account.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's. I think it's because it's so relatable. I mean, I think all of us as fans, as intense fans. I'm not sure exactly what your fandom is with Utah State. By the way, thank you so much for sending us Gary Anderson back in 2013. That was a weird. That's an interesting dude. We don't have to go in too deep onto a Gary Anderson tangent here, but wow, what a strange guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can probably thank Brent Bielema for that, right?
Mhm.
Didn't I mean, isn't what prompted that Bielema kind of late in the game went to Arkansas, and I think that was the year Utah State played in Madison and really should have beat Wisconsin. I don't know if you remember that as well as
Oh, I
I do.
remember. Yeah, I remember. It's horrifying.
Um,
And no, I
and
know that's how it happened. And yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just feel like as the person who hired him, I am of course Gary Alvarez. I
yeah, yeah.
feel like I didn't check Garrett's references. I probably should have looked at that resume and he said references available upon request. And I should have had a red flag when it was his wife. I think this should have been something better, but it's fine. And yes, Bielema bailed in the dead of night, got his Mayflower truck, and left just after the Big Ten championship game, where Wisconsin, I think they just scored another touchdown in this game. They beat Nebraska 70-32.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Hey, you know what sounds great? Leaving a Rose Bowl Wisconsin team in one of the greatest college cities in the world's history, and I'll go off to Fayetteville and to lose in this SEC. What a wonderful idea."
Yeah, I'm guessing that's one decision he may regret. And Utah State fans weren't happy about it either. We kind of thought we were in the clear in losing Gary Andersen that year, and then all of a sudden there he goes off to Wisconsin. But yeah, I know that's not what you came here to talk about, but
No, it isn't, but that's usually where I go anyway. That's where I go anyway. Well, so just I have to ask real quick. We can go into some other more interesting things, but where do your if you're willing to tell me, where do your fan loyalties lie? I will show my hand and say it's Wisconsin for me.
my my only fan loyalty is to Utah State, so that makes it a little bit more fun for me. A lot of times online, people try to guess what I am. If I post a post from an Oklahoma board, people will call me a Texas fan. Auburn board, people will call me an Alabama fan. But I have no loyalties to anyone outside of the Utah State Aggies, believe it or not.
No, well, I think in some ways that hits the highs and lows a little bit in the sense of you're not going to have those horrifying losses that keep you out of the college football playoff and things. It's a little bit more of a state existence where you can kind of go about your business, watch some games, have some fun. And I'm not trying to be infantilizing the Utah State program. I mean, there's a quarterback for my favorite NFL team that played
Uh-huh.
there named Jordan Love. So you all have some stuff going on there. But yeah, it's just it's not quite the same as having an SEC or a Big Ten follow, I would imagine.
Well, I don't really know because I don't know what it's like to be a fan to that extent. But I still go through a lot of highs and lows, believe it or not. But it always that's one thing that I love about looking at the message boards is I see these SEC schools or these Big Ten schools whining about how unfair the system is and how X program has more money and they're always taking our players. And it's funny for me to watch some of those fans of P5 schools whine about how unfair the system is. As a fan of a G5 school, I uh, I don't empathize too much with them.
Yeah, someone always has it worse than you. So, for example, there were a team in the Big Ten who's had a history of success, but doesn't quite have or not even close, frankly, the budget of an Oregon or Ohio State. And that fan is lamenting the fact that his coach, we'll call him Duke Wickle, doesn't have the same resources that maybe an Ohio State or Oregon has, and that is going to be problematic going forward. Maybe not
Mhm.
getting the quite same amount of sympathy from a Utah State fan.
No, no, no sympathy here.
Okay, hey, cards on the table. It's good. It's good to hear. I have to ask this: if you could break this down to one or maybe a couple of the most absolutely insane, entertaining fan bases that you deal with, what would those fan bases be?
Oh man,
The
Oklahoma and
schools.
Tennessee. I could say that without hesitation. Oklahoma and Tennessee. Those two fan bases are absolutely insane.
Okay, and what sorts of things, kind of as categories, make them so crazy? Is it just like the outlandishness of the posts? Is it the fact that they're so far off base with what reality is? I mean, is it a combination?
Well, Oklahoma fans are just really angry and don't have a ton of self awareness. I think they're pretty soft. They get most fan bases when I post stuff from the message boards understand that it's in good fun, for example, and they understand it's probably just one fan being silly or being outlandish. But Oklahoma fans, they get very offended very quickly. And they get offended easier and quicker than any fan base I've ever seen.
This is
Tennessee
Oklahoma.
fan, Oklahoma, yeah. Tennessee
Okay.
fans, they just seem to think everybody's against them. Every time they lose, the game is fixed. The refs are out to get them. There's some grand conspiracy against Tennessee always. Those are easily two of the craziest fan bases that I post them from. All the SEC fans are a little bit crazy, but Tennessee and Oklahoma kind of take the cake.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say I've never picked that up just kind of reading your stuff, but it makes sense based on things I've seen, especially given I feel like Oklahoma, the way they're with Texas, is a little bit crazy when you can make the argument that Texas's main rival now is A&M anyway. It's kind of like a one-sided thing where like the crazy girlfriend is keeps sending texts to someone and the person that changed their number. I'm not a big Longhorn guy. I'm just saying I think there's a dynamic there that seems to be more one-sided. Um, in the Big Ten, uh, it just isn't quite the same. I know there's a lot of hate between Ohio State and Michigan, and maybe some sub rivalries. There's some nasty, and there's some absolute goofballs in various fan bases.
Right.
But the, my most loathsome fan base to deal with is Minnesota, and it's not because there's the most fans or they're the craziest fans, but they're just so victory starved in every way except for hockey
Right.
that they're flexing on with Wisconsin because Wisconsin famously does not have a national title because we don't claim national titles from when they're playing like the Rockford School of the Deaf in 1903 with 9 guys on the field. We don't Minnesota
Right.
claims those. Wisconsin doesn't claim those. So Minnesota fans are flexing on their 8 national titles. And I remind them, just to be clear here, your school hasn't played in a major bowl game in 63 years. John F. Kennedy was the president the last time that Minnesota appeared in a Rose Bowl. And they just get so angry about that. Well, we beat you this year. It means we're a superior program. Okay, look, they're like the cute little pet you kind of have, like, and yeah, the pet poops on the carpeting sometimes. They got us, it happens. And
Right.
basketball, it's not quite as bad in basketball as far as their fans being annoying. They know their program is horrible. Wisconsin just beat them up for the 20th time in 22 years, 10th straight. But yeah, that's kind of our little. And PJ Fleck, if you follow any of my stuff, you know that I'm not a huge PJ Fleck fan in the traditional sense, but I am a huge PJ Fleck fan as far as content. So thank you, PJ.
Yeah, I haven't really noticed that about Minnesota, but I'm going to be honest. I don't get people that submit a lot of stuff from Minnesota, and I don't really look at the Minnesota board too often. In terms of Big Ten, I mean, at least the last couple of years, ever since Michigan won the national championship and the whole cheating scandal kind of reared its head, Ohio State and Michigan, and kind of Michigan State has kind of wedged their way into that fight a little bit, but obviously those are the Big Ten fan bases from where I get most of most of my content.
Yeah,
Iowa fans can be a little funny sometimes, but and Nebraska too. But Ohio State and Michigan are probably the primary culprits in the Big Ten, I would say.
yeah, that makes sense. And Nebraska fans, there are a couple that I like, and it's generally a pretty good stock of folk out there. It's not, but they do have this perception that they think it's like 1996, and it's only been a couple of years since their teams were good.
Right.
It's you know this blue blood football program thing. Look, you never know. Rule is a good coach. They have some pieces in place. That program appears to be ascending, but it isn't, nor has it vaguely resembled a blue blood football program for the better part of 20 years. Not even
Right.
close. I wouldn't even consider it a top 6 or 7 Big Ten team in that time. And frankly, most of those years they had very middling records. Uh, so they just want, kind of like Indiana in basketball, they want to get credit for things that happened a generation ago. And I just always kind of think that's funny. It's look, they beat Wisconsin this year, and it was like, yeah, just taking care of business, taking care of little brother. I'm like, little brother, we had won the last 10 games. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like
Yeah.
10 straight games across 2 decades, and even beat in 74. When you guys were number 2. So I don't know. It's just the Big Ten has a pretty good, I think, a pretty good group of folk, though. I don't think it's nearly as delusional or wild as some of the SEC stuff that you have to deal with. But
Oh
hey, look,
no.
some of the worst people, frankly, are the people who hate their own programs, like the Wisconsin fans who can't stand Luke Fickell, or that they want Greg Gard fired. Just a real frustrating thing to deal with. Where these fair weather people, the turf is always greener on the other side of the 50 for them.
Yeah, those are my favorite posts, and those are some of my favorite people who It'll happen the first drive of the first game of the season. If a team doesn't score, they want the head coach or at least the offensive coordinator, if not both, fired, or vice versa. If they get scored on the first drive, they want the defensive coordinator fired. They're not willing to kind of see how the rest of the game plays out. Every fan base has that. I could go to any game, any message board for any game, whether it's a Big Ten game, SEC game, a MAC game, Mountain West game, and I'll find the exact same stuff in the first game of the season, second game of the season, third game of the season. Doesn't matter. All fans are the exact same.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not sure what I haven't. I will cards on the table. I've not been following Utah State's basketball fortunes this winter, but Wisconsin, whether you've been following them or not, they've been around the top of the Big Ten, not quite at the very top. I think they're in a tie for third place right now. John
Right.
Tonji has put a Player of the Year kind of season together for him as a
Mhm.
transfer, but you would not they come out and lose a game last week at Michigan State. It was a 9-point game, but it was a 2-point game in the under four timeout. So they're playing with a top 10 team on the road, first place team in the Big Ten, not having a particularly good shooting day, and they end up losing a pretty close game. And you would have thought that Greg Gard was coaching Madison Area Technical College. How quickly these fans, not most of them, but the ones who like to be, push themselves to the front of the line and complain, do this heel turn where they're just like, "Oh, this is the same Greg Gard." I'm like, he's in third place in the Big Ten and he's ranked number 12 in the country, man. What are you looking for here? I don't. This is Wisconsin puts out 5 D1 recruits a year in their entire state. I don't. What are we doing here? So it's a little bit frustrating. And I know I pointed out, and you do a good job of not internalizing it, but I feel like I sort of take it personally on behalf of the program sometimes, on behalf of the coaches and players. And it's not that I'm a shill for the teams. I'm happy to criticize Luke Fickell for being under 500 after 2 years. I think some circumstances have led to that. But let me ask you this, kind of turning a little bit in the sundial.
Mhm.
What is, if you can remember, the most patently insane host or most entertaining, it could be the same thing or two sides of the same coin, that you can remember since you've been doing this? Is there one that stands out as just an all-timer?
Well, there's lots, to be honest with you. My favorite one was some of my favorite posts were from Oklahoma boards when Lincoln Riley left for USC. An Oklahoma fan basically said that his dream was that Matt Leinart would somehow impregnate Lincoln Riley's wife, and Lincoln would never know about it, and Lincoln would unknowingly raise Matt Leinart's son, and Matt Leinart's son would go on to become a championship quarterback at USC, and then right there when Lincoln got to be so proud of his son, someone would disclose to him that it was actually Matt Leinart's son and not Lincoln Riley's son. I don't know why that post cracked me up. I
Oh,
still have.
I can see why. Look, that's one of those things that if you are a mental health professional, psychiatrist, psychologist, maybe a psychoactive drug maker, you know that the future is bright. When you got people like that out there, that is so mind-bogglingly, and I don't know if it was tongue in cheek, but I'm going to go on a limb here and say that person is probably just venting their actual feelings. Does that sound fair?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's easy to do that when you're anonymous on a message board. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Unlike us, who put our faces out there like this, we have to kind of stand up for what we believe in. But yeah, it's wild stuff, and you know, it's fun and it's entertaining. I will say, without hesitation, the message board stuff that you do is a daily stop for me. And I think in some ways it makes us feel better as those of us who consider ourselves more rational fans about the way we do things and how we conduct ourselves with respect to our team when you see such a crazy type of behavior and conduct coming from someone else. That may be part of the appeal of not all of it. It's not really just pure entertainment, but that may be part of the psychological appeal of what you do. But it can very easily kind of morph into more of a dark side where the most base elements of people's psychology can come out, and so that's always kind of a fine line that all of us walk, yourself included, when we're sort of lampooning the way fans conduct themselves. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean, I would say one thing that I've noticed is it's easy to look at my account and say, well, all Auburn fans are this way or all Ohio State fans are this way. But I mean, in reality, all college football fans are the same way, I think. Um, and message boards, I think, are kind of a way to vent and maybe poke fun. Um, and they're also a good place. I will say this: there's a good place for actual information, and to exchange ideas and thoughts and those sorts of things. Um, but I think ultimately everybody kind of has the same elements in their fan base, whether you're Utah State, Wisconsin, Alabama, Ohio State, whoever you are. There's the same elements inside that fan base. You got the negative folks, and the folks that are always trying to look at the positive side of things. Those who are close to the program, who might give you some good tidbits here and there of information. And then there's people there who just are kind of there to keep tabs on what's happening in the program and everyone else's thoughts. I think generally they're pretty fun places, um, and good. I think it's good to see that everybody's kind of the same.
It would be a little disingenuous of me to say, "Oh, holding my nose, those Oklahoma fans are such rubes." I mean, there are the same, as you say, the same archetypes of fans in every fan base. Some just maybe have higher IQs, higher IQs in their fan base collectively than others, but that's my Big Ten bias showing up. I'm sorry. Um, but let's be honest here. Wisconsin is I feel like I call Michigan, Wisconsin safety school. That's probably not actually the way it is, but that's the way people think. That's
Right.
people. Everyone thinks their place is the greatest. Minnesota thinks that their student body is better than Wisconsin's and their fans are better than Wisconsin's. When objectively it's not true, but of course, who cares? These are all good schools with smart kids, loyal fans. Got a few kooky ones in there, maybe more than a few if you're Ohio State fans. But yeah, I think that we don't have to get into the larger narrative of what's happening with college sports. That's another show. Hopefully, we can do another one sometime. But I do think that there's still so many good fans out there for college sports, and we're going to see great evidence of that here later this month and into April with the college basketball tournaments, uh, both league and NCAA. That I think where there's so many terrible things swirling around amateur athletics, I do think that there's still something magical about college sports, especially basketball and football, that makes it a hugely important part of the fabric of this country. And I think you and I do tiny little parts to kind of poke fun at it and give some voice to various aspects of it. But I still feel pretty bullish about college sports in many ways going forward because the fans still love it and the kids still want to play. That's where I am.
Yep, I would tend to agree with you. It's it's a big part of people's lives, and hopefully it stays that way because it's a lot of fun that way. Everybody seems to have some investment in college sports that maybe doesn't exist in pro sports, and so I think that makes it a lot more fun.
Agreed, agreed. Okay, last question. I'll let you on your way here. Um, and I hope this catches you off guard. It's kind of funny. Give me your final four. I know this is not going to be you're not going to know where the seating is, but just give me the four teams that you think are gonna end up in that final four this year for basketball.
Well, I would say a team I watched the other night that I thought was fantastic was Florida. They look really good and really tough. I think Florida will be there. Obviously, it depends a little bit on seeding. Duke, I think, will probably be there. Man, then I mean, it's tough from there. Probably, I mean, I guess I would say Auburn, and then, I mean,
Awesome.
maybe, maybe Houston. I mean, that fourth team is hard for me, but I think Florida and
Yeah,
Duke, in my mind, seem to be the two best teams right now. That might not be the way the
yeah.
rankings show, but that'd probably be my four. But man, hoping we don't have three SEC teams in there.
That would be quite horrific. Or even one Duke team. One Duke team is one team too many. Called Duke. In that, I'm a little bit concerned about the Big Ten getting a team in that Final Four. I did a podcast recently. I said Wisconsin is the quote unquote kind of team that could make it. That's not the same thing as a prediction. Of course, I'm not predicting that, but I think it's going to be pretty wide open. I think we're going to have a couple of
Hmm.
surprise teams in that Final Four. I really do. I think this is an unusually wide open field. And asked me 10 days ago, I would have said Auburn was a shoe in
Yeah.
uh, to be a title favorite. Maybe they still are, but the Aggies handle them this week. But it's just going to be a fun time. I'm so excited about it, and obviously, as a Wisconsin fan, I'm hopeful that we can get to that second weekend for the first time since 2017. That's been a long wait for a very good basketball school. But by the way, is Utah State, are they in the fray?
Yeah, they should be. They've been trying to play their way out of it, but everybody's kind of got them as a lock. So
Okay.
we'll see if we choke here at the end or not. But we should be in around a 8, 7, 8, 9 seed in there somewhere. So maybe we'll see you along the way.
Yeah, well, we will do a follow-up show for sure if Utah State and Wisconsin, and if Utah State and Wisconsin meet, that's probably a good sign for both schools. I feel like that would be if they're an 8 or 9 seed, I feel like that would be a really good sign for Wisconsin playing Utah State. So I don't see
Yeah,
that happening, but yeah, we'll see what
yeah,
happens.
it's the
But
second
anyway,
weekend for sure.
yeah, well, love to see it. But MBG, thanks so much for hopping on. Really appreciate your voice. Keep doing what you're doing and making us laugh, and have a great rest of your day.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you. It was fun. It was fun being on with you.